Hey, Blockhead Traders. Here at Blockhead Traders, I must inform you that we are not financial professionals. Nothing we say should be considered financial advice. We offer our own thoughts and opinions to you, the viewer. We expect you to take these opinions and form your own financial opinions and make your own financial conclusions. Today is Wednesday, January 12, 2022, and this is Blockhead Traders Weekly. In this week's episode, we've got a special look back episode to 2021, and to help us look back, I'm going to be joined by fellow Blockhead trader Viper XL 007, and we're going to have a real casual episode this week. I've got some single barrel Four Roses bourbon, and we are going to reflect back on 2021 trading year. But before we hop to this content, I'd like to give a shout out to our Discord, link in the description below. Hop in there, say hello to us, tell us what you're trading, love to hear from you, tell us what content you're interested in. You'll also find a link to thetagang.com/sprocket888, where you'll find each and every trade that I made, the good, the bad, and the ugly, which will be super helpful for this week's episode because everything we talk about, at least on my trading side, is actually all documented there as it happened throughout 2021. But let's hop to this week's content here, Viper, of reflecting back on 2021. It was quite a year for the markets, a very bullish trend overall. And I entered 21 with different objectives and things that I was hoping to explore within 21. And we'll kind of touch on those in a bit. But how was 21 for you?
Had better years. There were a couple notable events, one of which we covered in a whole episode here, which really mungled things up. But there were also a lot of good takeaways. So at a very high level, I was in the black for the year. So that's always good. That's always my goal, is finish the year positive. Anything up is up. It's more than I had at the start of the year. But I did not outperform the market. That is absolutely certain. So at a very high level, I moved on 61 positions, equities, 61 different equities are trades that I made over the course of 679 trades, or what I actually made. And I ran like almost a dead 50-50 ratio. I had 31 losses and 30 profits. So pretty much straight 50-50. And to me, I kind of take away from that an interesting notion that I was pretty smack dab 50-50 and came out ahead. So that was kind of a nod to maybe position sizing, maybe knowing which risks to take, which ones not, or just dumb luck that it came out.
It could also be controlling your losses too. I mean, if you recognize you're losing and you cut your losses early, I mean that would limit your downside impact too. So don't discredit that aspect.
Yeah, for sure. And considering one of those, so going into my biggest winners, biggest losers, one of those was my biggest loser by far, which was the SESN disaster. And we did a whole episode on that, so go back and look at it. But it's hard to say that there was anything I would have done differently, but had I, that was a $4,200 loss. And so, had that one loss not been so significant, or had I been able to do something differently in hindsight, who knows, but that would drastically change that still pretty 50-50. And then I would be much more in the positive. It certainly could be limiting downside, as a contributing factor, because I'm much more skittish when things start going south. And then my biggest winner was AVIR, which was a ticker that I believe I swung trade, day traded for a little while when it tipped up in the Discord. So that one was my biggest winner at 3,400 total. That wasn't one play. I think I rolled because it had some real good price action on it for a little bit. And then the rest, I mean, those were the standouts. The other, other losses and whatnot were all fairly more contained. And I finished the year up about 6.5% for my account. So not bad, but what I take away from 21 was a fine tuning. So 2020, I went back and looked, and I had a much better year in 2020. But in 2021, I feel like I really started to dial in a strategy, dial into some products that really worked. Day trading, not really me. That didn't work out. But exposure to options. Getting good at recognizing naked put opportunities, capitalizing on naked put opportunities, getting that three-dimensional leverage and productization of options. And then towards the end of the year, obviously going into some crypto stuff, which I did not account for in this. I get that should probably be a different summary because I still got to figure out how to get all that pulled together. But it was a very good, very strong year when it comes to learning, getting my process down, getting my risk management down, and figuring out emotions, because that's still a really big challenge. But I am getting better at it, a la the SESN disaster. Had that SESN disaster happened a year ago being 2020, I mean, it could have wrecked me. Not financially wrecked me, but just wrecked my mentality, walk away, whatever. But the way that I reacted to it this year was, it happens, and I know how to make it back. I'm comfortable with what I can do, how I can do it, and it was a massive loss, and it didn't throw me massive into the red, which also says something to me. So always the optimist, I'd say.
Yeah, you call a couple of statistics jumped out to me when you were kind of talking through them. And the first was your number of positions that you traded versus the number of trades that you made. I think that was probably indicative of your trading strategy, because you really dabbled in that day trading.
Yeah.
And that's going to generate a lot of entries and exits in one underlying and really ramp up the number of trades while keeping that kind of number of different tickers kind of lower.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was basically a little over 10x number of trades to number of underlyings that I touched, which was a little surprising to me. I thought I got around a lot more, but it makes sense because that month-ish, so when I was really trying to nail in a day trading strategy, there was one day that might have been 50 to 75 trades, because maybe not that many, maybe 40 to 50. But yeah, a lot of that cycled through there. And some of the losses came from there, but a lot of tic-tac stuff, $100 or less, moved around there. But now it'll be interesting to compare that to this coming year, because I don't have any intentions of dabbling back into those waters. I'm getting very comfortable far, far away from those waters.
Yeah, so I mean, the other statistic that really just kind of jumped out to me, and maybe that's because it's a statistic that I kind of follow as well, is your win-loss ratio, where you were really close to almost a 50-50, I think you said, as far as winners and losers. I think that's pretty interesting because, I mean, you know me and how I trade and why I kind of try to convince you to do options and talk about deltas. And I think we've even said on many, many episodes, when you enter an equity position, you can do all the technical analysis you want, and that helps. That helps. Don't get me wrong. Technical analysis has merit and has bearing. But really, when you're playing those equities, your probabilities are statistically over an extended period of time really 50-50. And I think that statistic is interesting because I'll ask you if you actually did this, but I think the bulk of your trades were probably more equity type positions and not actually playing the delta of the options or things like that.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, without having the exact numbers, I would say probably a 90-10 split of, 90% equities, 10% options. Where the options came in, this is to the options argument. The options really probably helped hold up that profit win, for the year, just because of the efficiency, sizing it, things like that. That even though they were a 10 to 15%, of my activity, again, off the top of my head of how I finished the year, I would say they were a much more sizable portion of the profitability of the year.
Hey, there's hope for SESN, man. We got like a month left in that play that we put down, which right now is a total loser and total turd.
Go back and watch that episode. We call out the max loss. We are on that track.
Yeah, we're shooting for it, man. We're like max. Well, I'd rather take max loss than max profit. So unless they pull a rabbit out of their hat.
I just looked at that trade today and was like, should I just close this now and be done with it? But we're in it this far, and honestly, closing it now to max loss is not much at all. So.
No, we're so close to max loss. I had the same feeling as we were going kind of towards the end of the year watching that thing, and I said, you know what? When I entered this trade, I specifically said, this max loss I'm okay with. And cutting now is not going to save that many dollars. I mean, I'm talking it's probably going to save just tens of dollars.
Yeah.
But if something were to happen in a month, we still got a month left.
We could get $50 back.
Yeah. Well, remember, yeah, we'll see. So you can be sure we'll circle back to that once it's said and done, and we'll probably flash back to the episode where we actually made the play. And just an example, hey, we keep it real here. Not everything is all roses in our world.
Yep, absolutely. How about you? What did 21 do for you?
Yeah, so 21 for me was really a year about actually putting mechanics to paper and scaling out and really just going full tilt. And so I think if you go back to past episodes, I've done a few different reflections, particularly my 1 year anniversary or 2 year anniversary. I'll put a link up in the video above. I really spent 2020 understanding and learning the mechanics of options and trying to dial in a strategy. And 21 was all about, I already had that strategy dialed in. I'd kind of worked out what I thought were the kinks. And this was more of, let's go full tilt into this baby. Let's set some targets. Let's see if this thing can really go. Let's see if it scales. Let's see if it's consistent. Because a lot of times you read these trading gimmicks here, trading gimmicks there, and you're like, okay, yeah, that worked once. Great. Wow, this is awesome. And then you fail. And so I had done some tuning, and I set my targets, and I went into 21, and spoiler alert, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. So let's take a look. So I put together a couple statistics here, and I got another page of statistics that break things out monthly for you guys. But I broke this into two columns because, like I said, I went into 21 actually with goals, and I highly recommend going into a year with particular goals, and don't just like think about them and say, I want to make 100%. So that's my goal. They really have to be feasible. They really have to be rooted in something. And I had spent 2020 kind of learning and things like that. And so I felt I kind of knew what was reasonable, but I wasn't sure if it would really work in the long term. It's what I was achieving in these short-term month to months. And so I'll just kind of hit the ones that I actually set a goal first. And that was a win percentage. So I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier where with options, you can tilt the probability of profit to a certain level based mathematically on how options work. That's around the delta values. And by selling premium at around a 16 to 30 delta, which is what I do, statistically, that should yield about an 85% win rate or 86% win rate on one end of the spectrum down to a 70% win rate. And I sell anywhere in that range. And so, my average delta that I was selling within 2021 was about a 25 delta. So in theory, that should yield about a 75% win rate. So that was my target, to achieve at least what I theoretically should achieve, which was 75% win rate. Sure enough, in 2021, I basically had a win rate of 75%. I made 217 position trades, and I won 168 of those. So got that one.
So
Now,
question on that
yep.
is that delta is calculated for the full duration of the contract, correct?
That's right.
So most of these trades, you stuck to your 40% profit bailout, would you say?
50%, but yes.
50%. Okay. So
And the reason there, and is not that I was short circuiting that or cutting that loose, right? Because that still goes down as a winner. The reason I cut at 50% is because I want to lock in the profits and move to the next play, and so I can cycle more plays faster. But the key part, and Viper, you probably experienced this in the future trade that I just got you to play in, is if you're placing these trades right, you're placing them at the high point of volatility. And so you'll quickly get to that 50% solely on vol contraction. And that's where I cut the rope to say, okay, time to move on. I got my vol contraction, my volatility contraction. Let's go find another play.
Yeah.
You can ride it out, but why wait? Why burn theta slower when you get your volatility contraction, book your gain and move on? But that definitely is a good call out. And, I'll let it run down to my bailout price or things like that to let the statistics work out that eventually it should come back to that range, 25% of the time. But if not, the more times you can cycle through, it just increases the number of times you can compound the returns that you're after.
Yeah. And I think it definitely certainly still counts to the statistics the way you use them and represent them, because I think it makes a lot of sense, and it's cool to see it play out like that, because whether you take that contract all the way to expiration or not, the delta is to say there's a 25% chance that this won't be profitable. And so you're still fulfilling that by going to your specific 50% cut and run or volatility contraction. And it's just a matter of, like you said, being as efficient as possible, which is still a win. And then you roll that same percentage, those same statistics to the next one.
And the one thing I would note is a win basically just means I had a profit. It doesn't mean I hit my max profit. It just means I had a profit. Don't think that, oh my gosh, 75% of the time you're keeping your max credit. That's not true. Some of the wins were just eked out wins, things like that. So the next target I had was, well, theoretically, if my probability of profit is so high, then let's just not have a losing month. So every month that we have, let's make sure that my return is greater than 0. No losing month. And I didn't make this one. So I came real close. And as you'll see in the next slide, there was 1 month. I had 1 month where I had a negative return, and it was a whopper of a negative return. It also happened to be the month that also holds my largest loss. It was a very mental blow to my brain because it happened closer to the end of the year. I had, month after month after month positive return, and I'm like, wow. And then boom, negative 12.27%. Didn't get it. There's a myriad of reasons why, but I didn't make that one. Lastly, I had kind of two return goals. And the first return goal is I really wanted to return 10% or more a month. I've done kind of a lot of research in this area of what to expect, things like that. I don't believe a 10% return every single month is really scalable as your portfolio gets really large, just because of the nature of the plays that you put on and position sizing and this, that, and the other. But I was reading that it should be relatively attainable the smaller your portfolio is. And I don't have a giant portfolio yet. And so I set my target at 10%. I thought it was a little bit aggressive, but I thought I'd try it. And this is of the money that I put into the market. And what I actually achieved is about 11.37% average over all the months. That's not to say every single month was 11.37. You'll see in the next chart the variation from month to month. But my average across there was a win. Got this one at 11.37%. Now, one of the ways, which brings me to my next target, which is my average monthly return. So this is basically what's the return on the balance in my not in my portfolio, but in my trading account. So this takes into account all the cash that I have sitting on the sidelines. And I'm never 100% in the market. I'm usually in the realm of 50% in the market. Sometimes that creeps up into the 60, 70. I try never to be more than 80% in the market. That's typically my max. That's to protect for buying power expansion. That's to protect for just massive unexpected crashes, just cushion, things like that. And so if you have a bunch of cash on the sideline, your overall cash balance in your trading account, the expectations have to be set slightly lower. And so my target here was to achieve an overall cash increase of 6% a month or more. And I didn't make this one, but it wasn't that bad. So I actually achieved a 5.0% return on the money in my trading account on average month over month over month. Kind of looping back to other statistics that I didn't really set goals on, but people can find interesting. I actually traded 217 underlying, so 217 tickers within 2021. Those equated to actually 672 actual trading transactions. And a couple things that drive that number up. If I'm playing a particular position and I put on a strangle, so I'm selling a short put and a short call, that's one underlying, but two positions, two trades. If I have a particular trade like Peloton, for example, that I roll from 1 month to another, every time I roll, that's typically another trade. And so that's really where I get this kind of imbalance between the number of underlyings to the number of trades is depending on how that option play is structured, it could have more than one trade to get the order done for that underlying. You know, people always say, well, what was your biggest trade? What was your biggest loss? I try not to ever actually post dollar amounts when I talk about things. I try to post percentages, things like that, because I don't want to encourage or discourage certain activity. And a percentage is a real nice way to kind of normalize what you're seeing regardless of portfolio size. However, in this case, I did actually put these listed as dollar amounts. My biggest gain was a NASDAQ futures trade. It was an option trade that I played in early 2021, and it brought me in about a 6.7K return. Yin to the yang, my biggest loss was actually soy. We did a whole episode on this. 7.2K was my total loss on that futures trade. That was a very, very rough trade mentally for me. So those are all those beautiful statistics. I do want to jump to the monthly breakdown because, you know, some people are like, well, you know, how many trades do you spend? Do you spend your whole day staring at your computer screen? You know, are you doing 50, 60 trades a month? What are you actually doing? So I broke this down by month, and I also broke this down by futures and equities. So Futures is a newer thing for me. I started trading them about halfway through 2021, and you can see that statistically on my numbers. And some people wonder, do I get better returns in futures from a percentage basis or not? I'm not sure this is really conclusive of that, but I put the numbers up here. And the biggest thing you can see is that on average, you can see in the summertime, I actually was probably putting a greater number of trades on, but I'm usually looking at maybe a dozen to 20 different trades on a month, any given month. And that's the number of positions I open. I literally spend, I would say, an hour a day, on average, kind of researching plays, researching things like that. I put almost all my orders in outside of the market hours, limit orders, entries like that. I have a day job. I spend time on my day job. Do I know what's going on in the market during the day? Yeah, I get alerts on my phone or things like that. But I am by no means a trader glued to a screen, not even close. And so there's my breakdowns. And the interesting thing you can see right here is in the summertime, I started dabbling a lot more in futures. And towards the second half of the year, you can see the futures position ramped up and the equities position ramped down. And that's to keep the balance of the yin and the yang. And over here, you can see my return on capital of each and every one of these months. What was the big winners? What were the big losers? And that's how that shook out. So, Viper, let's hop to a couple of reflections that I had. The first one are my biggest takeaways from 2021. And what I'm going to call a takeaway, you can think of it as a lesson learned, things like that. But my biggest losses in 2021 essentially came from when my emotions got in way of my trading. It clouded my judgment. I strayed from my mechanics. We did a whole episode on this, the soy disaster /ZS. You can go back and watch it. The big takeaway I have here is trading is a mental, tough game. I don't want to let it to scare you, but you're going to watch a lot of videos of people just click, 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 boom, printing money, click, 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 printing money. It's not like that. There is ups and downs that can really just mess with your head. I think you even called it out, Viper, as something you struggled with.
Yeah, totally. I mean, my biggest loss, SESN, was completely the straying from my mechanics. Like, it wasn't an underlying that was on my radar, or normally would have popped up on my radar. It came to me through a friend, which isn't a bad thing at all, but it was just a very extremely speculative play. For those who aren't aware or didn't watch the episode or are planning to watch the episode later, it was a pharmaceutical play where they had a highly touted drug in development but was waiting on FDA approval. So, I mean, I'm not against a speculative play in that space, but I did not fully understand the mechanics of what happens when something, it was very much emotional outside of my mechanics. It was very much hype driven, FOMO of like, this is going to go well. Like, all the signs are there. This is perfect. It's going to be approved. It's a cure for, I forget which type of cancer, but, that was the big learning lesson was the writing was on the wall as to why that went so bad. Because anything else that I stuck to my mechanics obviously didn't lose that bad. And so, but not to bully that particular play. I mean, it's a tough mental game across the board. Every single trade that I made, there's a very vulnerable period right after you click that button to open the trade where it's like, did I do the right thing? And if it dips a little bit before it goes up, like, panic, and there's a lot of mental games involved for sure.
Yeah, it's on the plus side and the minus side. I mean, when you're up on your trades and you just logged a huge day, you're like, I'm invincible, king of the world. And then the next day you could have a loss and you're like, oh my gosh, what have I done? This is terrible.
Yeah.
It's tough. You got to be ready for it. One of the things that I found that kind of helps with that is have a trading buddy. I have a couple of people that I chat with through the Discord, through Skype, things like that. It's really helpful if your trading buddy happens to share similar strategies to you. I know for me, my particular trading buddy that I talk about a lot, or I don't talk about him here, but I talk with him a lot. Always bounce trade ideas off with him, and he bounces them off me. And it's like, hey, I'm looking at this. What do you think about this strategy here? And I'm like, well, there's this, and we'll either convince each other or kind of push each other away. And the asset that is very immeasurable, super valuable. So find a trading buddy, look online, look for communities, try to find somebody that shares your thesis and your strategy. You'll really end up standing on each other's shoulders again and again and again. And it will build each of you up, I promise. So that's a big takeaway for me. I'd love to have more trading buddies because I really think that is a super, super valuable asset, which is really not really spoken about, I don't think, in a lot of circles.
Specifically in our Discord.
Yeah. We can plug our Discord. I don't want this to be a complete shill of our stuff, but we have some great chart contributors in there. Shout out to Death8U. He's even been a guest on the show. We need to have him back, but just that community to bounce ideas. I'm telling you, it's a powerful thing.
Yeah. Even if it's not our community, like Sprocket said, just similar minds being near each other, I have a very specific trading style. Sprocket has a specific trading style. Death8U has a specific trading style. And we're all learning from each other and in each other's direction and why we make the moves we make. We're not following each other. And there's stuff that Death8U talks about that applies to options or entry points or things like that, and vice versa, where there's stuff we talk about that can potentially help his trades. And so it's not about following each other. It's just being in the lounge together and having a conversation.
And the last one that I have is FOMO. It's a powerful force, guys. You always hear about it, joked about online, fear of missing out. You hear people talk about some trade that they did, and you're like, oh man, I got to hop in this. Resistance can be hard. Have a strategy, have a plan, stick to it.
Yeah.
I don't have much more to say on that other than that's a big takeaway.
Yeah.
It's a real thing.
I would even say FOMO applies not just getting into something, but getting out. There's a lot of people that say the hardest part of trading is taking your exit. And that's absolutely true. Like when something's mooning, I've done it on a number of trades where something goes wild and it's past or it's right at my sell point where when I was under better judgment, I said, this is when I'm going to sell. And then FOMO of missing even more settles in, and I'm like, no, wait, let's see where this goes, and then I lose it all. And so FOMO is not just getting in; it's also making sure you get out when you're supposed to.
What's my refrigerator material? And I didn't really know what to call this. These are basically the things that I'm glad happened, the things that I kind of feel good about. And so refrigerator material, they're coming home from school and hanging that thing up on the refrigerator, which my kids can't do because I think every refrigerator is stainless steel these days. But this is my 2021 refrigerator material. For me, I set out to prove that my theory, my thesis, my mechanics that I was set forth and studied within 2020 can scale, can work, can happen, consistently month after month after month, in varying market concerns. I believe I truly achieved that. I hit most of my targets in general. Yeah, okay, maybe I missed one or two, but I didn't miss them by much. And, I'm cool with that. Overall, I feel like I really landed my strategy and proved that it can scale and last. Within 22, what do I want to do? I want to diversify a little bit. Both in other strategies. I want to learn other strategies. I think, trading with just one strategy is a very kind of one trick pony, right? I want to be able to have various tools in my toolbox, arsenals. I recognize that there's a couple other areas that I really want to expand in. One of them is crypto from a growth perspective. I'm probably never going to quite be as aggressive as Viper is in this space, but I'm ready to get my feet in the water there and see how that goes. The other aspect that I really want to ramp up in is my dividend investments. I really want to kind of section off a section of my portfolio to kind of build these more investments, not trades, but a longer kind of wealth building corner there. Another goal that I kind of had for me, you'll know we started this channel. I started this channel back in 2021 around the springtime. I was real nervous about kind of setting it up. I mean, talking to a camera is really weird. I asked, Viper, hey, would you join us? Would you help me kind of launch this thing? Give me somebody on the other end of the camera to talk to. And I really stuck with that. I think Viper, I can go back and look. I probably should have done it before the episode. We didn't miss too many weeks that we were busy and things like that. I'd record a solo episode. We actually even pre-recorded some stuff when we knew we were both going to be unavailable. I just feel really good about constantly doing this week after week after week and just generating this habit. And the whole premise was to just share my trading experience with the broader internet community. We only have 61 subscribers. I never set any goals to that. I always said, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be straightforward. If people want to hear it, great. Good for them. Good for you. You're watching this. If not, I'll move on. I'm not trying to make money off of the YouTube angle. I'm not trying to make a career out of it. I'm simply trying to share honest information. Within 22, I actually want to build on this. I want to expand, make better coverage. I've learned a lot from making videos. Probably the first one is I make videos that are way too long. This one probably is going to be way too long. I want to edit shorter videos. I want to be more concise. I'm going to start a written media within 22. I have other things. I won't announce them all here because I want to make sure that I'm going to do them correctly. But I really want to expand out on this information sharing within 22. And the last point that I'll say is my refrigerator material is, I haven't really shared or discussed or coached very many people. I've had the opportunity to do a small handful, and it's really, really cool when you find somebody that's interested in a topic that you know a little bit about. You might not be an expert, but you know enough that you can share that with somebody else that's interested. And the coolest moment is the moment that the light bulb goes off for them, where they get it. They understand what you're trying to tell them. They understand your trading perspective. So I've had the opportunity. I won't name all the people that I've kind of worked with as far as learning options selling and that light bulb moment. The only one that I will share is Viper because he's here, and I've gotten him to sell options. And as of a week ago, I've gotten him to sell future options. And just having that moment where they get it and they were interested and they wanted to learn it, that is an awesome feeling.
Hey, I mean, I'm getting you back into the crypto space.
And it's a good feeling when somebody gets it, isn't it?
Yeah. For me, in that feeling, the way that crypto's evolved and the way that I see these products that exist now in crypto that are like these realizations of your former vision of where you wanted crypto to go, that, not saying it's all perfect now, but just seeing those products exist and then being like, hey, that thing you wanted, it's here now, whether you still want it or not. And then kind of seeing some of those ideas take hold.
Yeah, Viper, that's 2021. We're on to 2022. Any last thoughts from you before we kind of wrap up here?
I don't think so. I mean, 2022 for me is more about bookkeeping and, kind of trailing a little bit behind of like where some of your goals were last year of really getting into the rhythm and the flow. Now that I feel like I've been exposed to most products I think I'll ever be interested in, and so now finding their place to set them and not completely forget them, but at least not babysit them so much, and just start to let things grow from there.
Yeah, it's a good approach to have. I will kind of recap with those of you watching this now. If you have aspirations in what you want to achieve in trading, I strongly recommend writing down your goals. Put them on a Post-it note. Look at them every day. Keep a trading journal. We talk about all the time. The reason I can pull these statistics weren't because I went to my broker to try to find something. It's because every single trade that I make, I document on my own trading journal. I write notes about it, about what was I thinking? Why did I do this? That way, when you come back to summarize things, you can go back and say, well, what the heck was going on? In my particular slide, when I was talking about my monthly breakdown, early in 21, you saw this huge futures loss, in the return on capital column. And I was looking at that. I'm like, what the heck was that? And I went back and I checked my trading journal, I checked my notes, and I'm like, oh, that was a hedge that I put on the Russell before I really kind of figured out how you actually do a hedge properly. And later on, we did a whole hedge episode on this channel, and it was basically because of lessons that I learned and the reason that stuck out. I could go back to my journal. I actually wrote a whole paragraph at the time on what I was thinking. Why was I thinking it? Why did I do this? And being able to reflect on that is super important. So keep a journal, set goals. The market shouldn't be scary. Trade what you're comfortable with, position sizes, bite-sized pieces. I mean, all the stuff we talk about on this channel. Find a trading buddy, hop in our Discord, say hello. All that stuff, guys. We love to hear from you. Message me on Discord directly. I will talk to you. Look forward to it. Lots of exciting things coming up in 22. Lots of exciting time in the markets. A lot of volatility is increasing. Get out there, trade your strategy, trade your products, do what you love, and remember, think outside the block.